What up? All my scientists, my artists, my philosophers, my geneticists, my roboticists, my biologists, my archaeologists, my astronomers. Let's get busy. This has been Busy from the Burbs. Chill. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This has been Busy from the Burbs, broadcasting to you from Osaka, Japan. A little background on me. So I spent the better part of 10 years in the Boston underground hip-hop community, graduated university, had difficulty finding a job, moved to Jersey from Boston, and said fuck it and joined the Marine Corps, where I served for 4 years. The entire time I've been active in science and technology communication, and now I'm just, teaching some English, doing some consulting in Japan, and have some extra time on my hands. So I thought, hey, why not? I'm constantly flooding friends of mine's feeds, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, sweet MySpace. Just kidding, no one uses MySpace anymore. With science and technology news, so I thought, well, why not try that in like a podcast kind of format. I've had to go back and restart the recording here about 4 times, so this is going to be raw, folks, okay? Like, this, I think, could be the take, so we'll go with this one, but if this doesn't work, then you're just going to have to grin and bear it. There might be dead air. I know that's not a very popular thing in broadcast. Dead air is like, something that you don't want to have happen, because then the listener is thinking, what the hell is going on? And also, this right now, this kind of like, what would you call it, extemporaneous explanation, or this rationalization is also not very well liked. So we'll just move on into the first bit that I want to share with you. So for those of you who aren't familiar, recently a person by the name of Ross Ulbricht was convicted of conspiring to, what would you say? Convicted of conspiring to, like, basically manage the Silk Road, which, for those who don't know, was an online market, an online marketplace, completely anonymous, where users could exchange goods and services for what, in this case, was Bitcoin. Bitcoin was the currency that was used. And just reading from the Wired article here, and I'll post in the links, a jury has spoken, mask is off. Ross Ulbricht has been convicted of being the Dread Pirate Roberts, secret mastermind of the Silk Road online narcotics empire. On Wednesday, less than a month after his trial began in a downtown Manhattan courtroom, 30-year-old Ulbricht was convicted of all 7 crimes he was charged with, including narcotics and money laundering conspiracies, and a kingpin charge, usually reserved for mafia dons and drug cartel leaders. Now, anyone who followed the trial knows that the charges were trumped up. The evidence was flimsy. There was competing evidence to suggest that there were multiple Dread Pirate Robertses, one of which is Karpelès. His name is Karpelès. He was the CEO of Mt. Gox. And Mark Karpelès, who was, last I heard, residing in Tokyo or thereabouts, was recently arrested on charges he's being held in connection to the loss of over $387 million worth of Bitcoin. Not exactly a reputable person. I mean, when Mt. Gox went down, it was pretty evident that, Karpeles had something to do with it. Okay, but back to Silk Road. So yeah, Silk Road trial happened, and Ross Ulbricht was convicted. Uh, they're currently in appeal right now, but a couple points to note here that I want to point my listeners to. So there's a channel called Brave the World on YouTube that's run by an intelligent young lady who espouses anarchism. Many people kind of have the wrong idea when it comes to anarchism. I tend to reserve my subscription, I guess, to full blown anarchy, but do reserve the right, or I do reserve the or I do take up the position of educator, insofar as kind of allaying people's fears, as it regards anarchism. People have the wrong idea, right? When they think anarchy, they think, oh my God, there is just going to be pandemonium, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria, right? But that's not the case. At least not if you speak with any educated, intelligent anarchist. I mean, this isn't your fourth grade or brand of anarchy where you're like carving the anarchist A into the desk and just generally being misanthropic and kind of disagreeable in grade school. This is you're proceeding from very basic established principles of non-aggression, and going from there. Now, anarchy does have its problems, right? You have monopoly and arbitration, jurisprudence. Like, how do you adjudicate a disagreement between two parties? How is that adjudicated? What manner of system? If you don't have some type of judiciary, some type of impartial or supposedly impartial judiciary, how are decisions made? In terms of like who is at fault or damages awarded and so on. So anyway, this young lady who has the channel Brave the World posted a really good series of videos where she's following the Silk Road trial, and I would recommend, and I'll link people over to the first one, so you can get a sense of what's happening there. She was actually on the ground there at the trial for a few of the days, and was broadcasting from there. So that's good. Another thing that I want to point people to would be the documentary that was done recently by the guy who played, I don't know, was it Bill from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. That guy has gone on to be and to establish himself. Bill Preston has gone on to establish. Is it Bill? No, Alex Winter. Sorry, Alex Winter, who plays Bill Preston in the film Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, had gone on to, after that series of films, to a great career in the film industry, and he recently wrapped a film. If I can get the title here. He recently wrapped a film that's a documentary about the Silk Road. It's called Deep Web, and just a link from just the synopsis from IMDb. It says, a feature documentary that explores the rise of a new internet, decentralized, encrypted, dangerous, and beyond the law. Now, dangerous, I mean, that could go either way, right? I mean, it could also save lives. In the case of dissidents in China or Iran or Turkey, or even the United States, dissidents who need to, protect their identities. The Tor protocol or the deep web could serve to, save lives as well as endanger them. So that's kind of loaded, I think, to draw in viewers. So yeah, I'll provide those links. It's really it's the film, the documentary film is really informative, and although Alex Winters tries to maintain a certain impartiality as an objective lens and kind of just presenting the story as it unfolds, you can't help. I don't care like who you are. If you have a heart in your body, you can't help but feel for the Ulbrichts. He's just been railroaded, and so much has come out in as a result of investigations, internal investigations in the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, to show that there is complicit, there was active criminal intent on part of the investigators or agents attached to the investigation. In one case, to embezzle or to steal countless millions of dollars in Bitcoin. That was marked as evidence. So really interesting thing to research, to look into. If you're looking for just the brass tacks, I would highly recommend Deep Web. It's a well-made film and kind of communicates the technology of what Tor actually is, how it works, the Deep Web, what it is, how it works, in a very clear and concise manner. So there's that, right? Moving on from there, Google, in other news, I mean, we're kind of pivoting completely. Probably should pivot to another political topic, shouldn't I? I guess there's Donald Trump. Donald Trump, what can you say? Like, anything this guy does, now I don't want his name to kind of dominate these airwaves. So with that said, like, there's also Sanders, right? Bernie Sanders is... Bernie Sanders, so far as I know, I think he was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, right? Same thing with, born in Brooklyn, and Donald Trump also born in Brooklyn. Like, if this comes to a head, if this goes to where I think it's going to go, sorry, Trump was born in Queens, so it's a Queens, Brooklyn, Queens and Kings, man, Queens and Kings. It's a battle, right? Oh my God. I'm just reading this headline now. Donald Trump says, "I am Batman" to boy on helicopter ride. He's like the furthest thing from Batman that you could possibly get. His hands are probably softer than a dandelion. Like, this guy is he's an egomaniac. He's utterly full of himself, and he's so blustery and so full of confidence that, unfortunately, that's the type of attitude that resonates with not just the American people, but with human psychology at large, You have someone who's constantly never showing any sort of weakness that I can see, and I'm kind of examining the interviews really closely to try and detect that, and there's none like that I can see. There's no kink in his armor anywhere, apparently. The thing is, his record is kind of serves as that one giant kink, right? Like, yeah, he's a very smooth operator, and you'll see him in the interviews where he's talking, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I met the guy, and the guy was great, and yeah, I'm very good friends with him, and I sell lots of apartments to China, blah blah blah, millions and millions of dollars, and do I know whether or not?" Like, when he's asked a question, he'll like filibuster, and then he'll just kind of ram it through. So at the end, he's not really answering the question, right? He's a very shrewd politician in that sense, but it's like there's no calculation that's going on behind the scenes. Like this is the psychology that he has cultivated. There's no pause for thought, really. Maybe there's a few moments because maybe that's just what short form calls for. I don't know how he would do in long form. I don't know what Donald Trump would be like in long form. And the unfortunate thing for the American people or for viewers in general is that you don't get a really good sense of who a person is in short form. If I cut this podcast short and if I cut this podcast short at this 15-minute mark roughly, and this is all that you had to go on, well, obviously, yeah, it would seem this short form, it would seem like I would have my shit together a little bit more, maybe. I mean, this recording has been going on for just under 16 minutes. There's been dead space. There's been false starts. There's been miscues, misspeaks. But, for the most part, I think it's pretty cohesive. Like, I'm producing a pretty decent broadcast. But if this goes on for a longer amount of time, which I intend to have this, probably, for the first one here, I'll probably get it to, I'll do a solid hour. That would make sense, right? I'll do a solid hour. When it would get to an hour, you'd have a much better understanding of who I am as a person, flaws and all. And we don't get that luxury with Donald Trump. You don't get it with anyone who's in, either running for president for the most part or otherwise. I mean, we're getting snippets, and that's what we have to kind of judge the person's personality on, is the snippets. You'll have to forgive me if you hear my voice cutting out or getting lower as I'm turning my head to the computer, and because I don't have the boom stand necessary, my mouth is being directed away from the target on the mic, so there might be some fluctuation in the audio quality. Anyway, back to Trump. So with the long form, you get a much better sense of who the person is, right? And we don't work for Donald Trump. We don't have regular contact with him. We don't really know what he's like. But one thing that I do know is that he's certainly not Batman. Okay, there was what was it? There was a quote. The quote goes, "There are 571 billionaires in the United States, and none of those losers has tried to become Batman," right? I'm looking on the Quora. There's a really, I don't know. I'm going to read this. This guy, Soham Chakraborty, software developer at Samsung Research Institute, Google student ambassador, has a real snarky answer, but it seems pretty well balanced. I want to give it a read. So he says, Gotham doesn't exist. Salient features of real-world billionaires presumably do. He doesn't write that, though. Number one, they have better things to do in life, enjoy their money rather than spend the nights getting injured. Okay, yeah, this person obviously fails to realize what Batman is or who Batman is supposed to stand for or what Batman is supposed to stand for. He goes on, number two, the world in no more black and white. There are shades of gray everywhere. Obviously, English is not this person's first language. That's fine. Number three, to become Batman, one must be motivated and dedicated to the cause. Very few are on top of that. They are rarely billionaires. Number 4, no Joker exists. The police can tackle the level of criminals that exists, which, I mean, I don't know if that's true. If that was true, if police could tackle the level of crime that existed, then there wouldn't be crime, right? They'd just be on top of it all over the place, which leads you to one of two conclusions. One, the police are incompetent, or two, they're letting it happen. Or three, they're potentiating it. They're potentiating the crime to exist. We'll move on. Number 5, you do realize a man fighting against armed thugs has very low chance of survival. Batman does it because he is a fictitious figure. Well, then he just needs to train harder. I guarantee that, if someone adept at MMA were to don the cape and cowl and encounter, your average criminal, one, there would be guns involved. So if Batman were to exist in the real world, he would certainly have to. He would certainly have to be a registered firearm carrier. He wouldn't even really have to be registered. He would just have to know how to field and service a firearm. Number 6, 571 billionaires are trying to be the White Knight, not the Dark One. Bill Gates and many others are pooling in money to solve real-world problems on a larger scale than Batman, world diseases, poverty, etc. Which, he's got a good point there, because if you were able to address the underlying, stupid people like to attack problems like crime from the top down, like it's an iceberg, without paying any measure of attention to the underlying root causes of what gives rise to crime and the criminal enterprise and criminal activity. Someone like Gates, could be interpreted as kind of like the super Batman or the ultra Batman, in that he's kind of trying to get at and attack and destroy the substrate upon which, or transform the substrate upon which crime grows. So he's got a point there. Number 7, Bruce Wayne became Batman to inspire people that good can exist in this world. I hear many billionaires are doing good for the society. The spirit of Batman does exist in them. And, he's got a point there. Yeah, that's true. There seems to be some disconnect. It seems like people at the top of the mountain are and we had gone through what seemed like a period where that wasn't true, where people like Donald Trump got all the press, and people like, Sergey Brin did not. And I think that there's been a tide change there. So you have old money and new money, right? Silicon Valley is still kind of considered as to be nouveau rich or bourgeoisie. This is new wealth that's been generated, and there seemed to have been a lull there. Although it could just be a matter of observer's effect, or wherever you're putting your attention, that makes it seem like that. But there seemed to be a lull there from the 80s through the 90s, even to this day. Like, there seemed to be a lull in progress that was benefiting the average citizen. But then when you consider something like the internet, for example, that just flies in the face of that argument completely, right? The thing about being at the center of a slow moving phenomena, like being a human alive in this day and age, or in any age, is that you don't get a real sense of what progress has been made because you've been following it the entire way, right? And one of the promises that's been made insofar as the exponential rate of technological innovation is that as time goes on, those leaps in drastic process improvement, drastic technological improvement, drastic societal improvement, drastic whatever it is, to make your beer taste better. That this will be more and more readily apparent. That you'll go to sleep one day and wake up the next, and it will be as if you had, entered some kind of Valhalla, some kind of technological utopia. But maybe that's just dependent on the personality and has really less to do with what progress is actually being made. That's a question for the neurocognitive philosophers of mind, and neuroscientists. But number 8, one doesn't need to be a billionaire to be Batman. Good can be done without the high-tech gadgets. One doesn't need to be a billionaire to be Batman. Well, I think he's speaking rather... that's kind of a liberal interpretation of the definition of Batman. I mean, Batman, strictly speaking, is the the secret identity. I'm sorry, what's the alter ego of Bruce Wayne, and Bruce Wayne is definitely a billionaire. He's a multi-billionaire, right? So that's false if you hold to the definition of Batman rather strictly. So, yeah, Donald Trump is not Batman, regardless of what he wants to say. But maybe stoking this fire, maybe this would be a good thing to do. Terence McKenna once said that we are led by the least among us, and it's true. While people like Bill Gates, who have fantastically greater fortunes than Donald Trump, are doing much better things for the world because they're operating outside or alongside as a non-governmental organization with established nation states and governments. Maybe it's true. Politics is a short game. It benefits from short form, and to have Donald Trump think and say things like "I am Batman." Maybe this is a good thing for America, for him to honestly believe that he actually is, to kind of stoke that fire, to keep him going towards benefiting people, to legitimately benefiting people in any way that he might be able to. The legitimacy of that, the efficacy of it, we'll see. Government, and I don't mean to kind of segue back into the story that we started with in terms of anarchy, and anarchy, by strict definition, simply means no rulers. That's all that it means. But if Donald Trump is under the impression that he's helping people, maybe that's a good place to keep politicians. And we like to invest a lot of respect and admiration, deference, and consideration and belief in political structures and political figures in the hopes that they're actually going to do something. Unfortunately, the problems are so incredibly complicated. The scales are so massive that to expect a politician to step in and actually resolve any issue of any significance is kind of a pipe dream. You kind of, you know, it's kind of a wishing well kind of thing to expect one person or even a collection of people. Although Margaret Mead did say, never underestimate the power of a small group of people to change the world. Uh, Actually, it's all that ever has, something to that effect. There is power in the minority, or the individual, I should say. The individual who is like the ultimate minority, right? You'd also have to calculate for race and ethnic background, gender, sexual orientation in order to arrive at the ultimate minority. Um, I think a friend of mine from grade school, Jason Hamill, once said, Nazi skinhead Eskimos who want to adopt. But I mean, I'm certain there's even a smaller minority, and that minority really ultimately is you. It is the individual, right? It starts with you. Where am I going with that, though? Okay, train derailed. So, Donald Trump, we're talking about anarchy, we're talking about systems of government, and the ability for NGOs to move more lithely, and for smaller organizations really to do more benefit for the world than larger organizations, right? To believe that the federal government is going to wave its magic federal government wand and fix all your problems. I mean, it can barely balance the budget, which is another argument against people who believe in conspiracies, governmental conspiracies. I mean, the government is so bogged down in bureaucracy. I heard it once said that they can't even balance a budget. How would you expect them to fake the moon landing? These are people who can't even balance the budget, right? There once was a time when government worked more effectively, more efficiently. But then you had very clear objectives, right? If the government is given a very clear objective, that machinery, although it's very large, once it starts moving, can be very effective. Take the internet, take the Apollo moon landing, take the Manhattan Project. When the resources are devoted, when government actually works and is not bogged down in bureaucracy and overlapping levels of middle management and that clusterfuck that it's come to be looked at as, it can be really effective. Whether or not it's more effective than a smaller, maybe corporate organization like a Google in the development of something like, say, AI, is to be decided, really. I mean, you have DARPA kind of driving towards AI, Google driving towards AI, Apple driving towards AI, countless academic institutions and think tanks driving towards AI. But who has been most effective so far? I would say, well, one, we wouldn't be able to say because the government or military AI projects are steeped in secrecy, top secret, compartmentalized information clearances required to work on those projects. But I don't know. I get the sense, if I look for an existence proof, like, I don't know, computers. Yeah, it was maybe government research that helped to give birth to a computer, or the self-driving car, for example. Self-driving car might be a better example, but it's been private companies that have really, taken it to the end zone. I think governments do good to get a lot of the heavy lifting done. For example, if anyone was serious about backing up humanity on Mars, humanity 2.0, like having a backup, then you'd want to have You wouldn't need to do it because there are some very wealthy private billionaires. But you would want to have the weight of the federal government behind such a project in the form of NASA or what have you because of the heavy lifting that they can do. You know, if that weren't the case, it would have been done a long time ago. We would have had billionaires establishing residencies extraterrestrially a long time ago, and that just hasn't been the case so far as we know. I don't know, you know. If you've seen the movie Contact, you'll know Jodie Foster's character is funded by this kind of reclusive, enigmatic billionaire who takes to staying on an airplane because he's dying of terminal cancer and is trying to figure out some way to arrest the aging process or the cancer replication. And he had, you know, unbeknownst to, oh no, wait a minute, it was the U.S. government. Unbeknownst to everyone, they had built two, right? They had built two of these devices. The first one failed, destroyed itself. They had this backup second one, right? But whether that funding was coming from the federal government at that point or the reclusive magnate, I'd have to go back and rewatch the film. It's a very good film. I'd have to go back and rewatch it. So there was that, right? I Am Batman. Trump is not Batman. We covered some anarchy, government organizations versus private companies. There's a substantive difference between Bill Gates and Donald Trump. And although Mr. Soham Chakraborty is right in saying that you don't have to be a billionaire, or in this case, like Trump's estimated to be his net worth somewhere in the 10 billion range, whereas like someone like Bill Gates' net worth, what is it? Bill Gates' net worth is $79.3 billion, right? It's many, many times that of Donald Trump. Like he's like minor league compared to them. You know, do you have to make the amount of money that Bill Gates currently has in order to justify actually finally taking up the Batman mantle, taking up the mantle of Batman, taking up the cape and cowl, and doing good work, you know, for people, to benefit the world, to rid it of crime and poverty, the poverty that gives rise to crime, you know? Is that do you, like, how much money is finally enough? I mean, maybe Bill Gates represents that max value where it's like, okay, beyond which we no longer need anything. I don't know, food for thought, right? So yeah, so there's that. So regarding the podcast, I mean, what's really going to determine the viability of this as a thing is whether or not I'm able to kind of keep the schedule consistent. Now, unfortunately, due to my work schedule, that schedule is not very consistent. However, if I'm able to get funding, then I could free up more time in my schedule in order to do this. Now, I understand that this is probably not going to happen right away in terms of sponsorships and so on and so forth. But I would like to say that, you know, if you are looking to contribute, if you are looking to you know, help support this enterprise or support this podcast, then by all means, I'd like you to send me a PayPal, at benjamin.peterson@gmail.com. I'll post more information in the links. It's been a while since I logged onto this PayPal, and I'm wondering if I should actually give my PayPal Japan account vice my stateside PayPal, because I might not be able to get the funds as readily through the through the U.S. one. But needless to say, it's saying my credit card is expired. Don't want to do that now. Chotomate kudasai. That means hold on a second in Japanese. So yeah, I guess I could do a request. I could set up a request. But yeah, that would be the email address to send to, benjamin.peterson@gmail.com. I really need to kind of revise that so I'm not like broadcasting my name, although it really doesn't matter. My name is Benjamin Peterson. The name for this podcast is to be determined. I was thinking of just calling it Get Busy. Owing to my stage name, Ben Busy. Calling it Get Busy, it would be like a kind of catchy hashtag, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that gain traction? I don't know. Anyway. So yeah, that's just some system note. Okay, so apart from that, let's see, what else do I have to promote? Not a lot. I mean, it would just be this podcast. If you're looking to kind of support the podcast in some other capacity, please reach out to me. I know I had been in talks with a bunch of you to do kind of a shared podcast, but owing to the fact that my schedule is so erratic or just so unpredictable, it was way too difficult to coordinate schedules, and as such, I just kind of stepped out on my own and did this. But I mean, if you wanted to, we could do some kind of like constellation, establish ourselves as some kind of network, so that, okay, maybe I'll do Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and you could do Tuesdays and Thursdays, or whatever the case may be. If we had 3 people, we could divide the days and establish some kind of like constellation. That might result in greater gains until we get off the ground and are fully established as, individual broadcasters, or whatever. If we officially merge shows into one show, and have funding, and we are being funded, and we have listeners, as the case may be, whatever it is. So yeah, if you're looking to support the podcast in that sense, or you have some ideas, or you have some tips or something that you want me to talk about, please don't hesitate to shoot me an email. I'm going to... This is done so hip pocket, like I haven't established an email address to send all this traffic to or anything. So all of that needs to be done, Facebook, social media. If you're good with social media and you're looking to assist in that sense, then by all means, I'd love to have you aboard, and just send me an email and let me know. benjamin.peterson@gmail.com. That email will be subject to change. And yeah, that's it. I mean, what are we at now? We're about 43 minutes. So, system note aside, I just recently had the pleasure of going to see Jurassic World with my family here in Japan, which was really enjoyable. It's a fun time. Science aside, if you can say that. This is the thing. Like a hard scientist, like an actual archaeologist or an actual, geneticist, anthropologist, cultural anthropologist, just scientists in general, anyone that's actually been trained formally in the science of archaeology may have some difficulty watching, or the science of genetics might have some difficulty watching a film like Jurassic World, because, when you're at that level, when you're adept at a science at that level, all of the inconsistencies, all of the errors, all of the factual, all the fallacies they just stand out, right? And it's difficult to just kind of sit back and enjoy the spectacle when you can see the imperfections, on the surface of the work, whether that's a painting or a sculpture or whatever it is. I mean, it stands out. It's a blemish, and you fixate on it because you want that piece of work. You want it to be good. Like when I watch a film, having served 4 years in the United States Marine Corps, I'm familiar with the details that is part and parcel with the experience of serving not just in the Marine Corps but in a standing military as a whole. And when I watch Hollywood films and I see them take liberty with, the way that things are done in the military, and films have gotten a lot better at this recently. It's odd that there would be this correlation, though, because back in the day, like during the 40s, during the war effort, and in the 50s, these were films being made by a generation of people who had, recent, if not first-hand experience with fighting in war or serving in a military. And then something happened, right, where you had a lot of these logical inconsistencies, these fallacies, in the forms of, inappropriate behavior, like wearing your cover, which is a military term for. Oh shit! All right, it's 10 a.m. here. Cover is a military term for hat. When you see that being worn indoors, like that just stands out. It's like a glaring mistake. It's an error. Whoever produced it, whoever instructed or directed that person to wear their cover indoors without them getting yelled at by their superior officer is just wrong, And different branches of the military have different rules on that. I'm not sure what the rules are in the Army or the Air Force. I think that you can wear your cover indoors in the Army, but in the Marine Corps it's a big no-no. So when you see a film and you see an inconsistency, let's say you're a geneticist and they fail to include guanine in the list of chemicals: guanine, adenine, cytosine, thymine, the basic building blocks. And did I say cytosine? Yeah, guanine, adenine, thymine, cytosine, right? Gattaca. When they fail to include guanine in that list, like you'd fucking want to, slam on the brakes right there. The movie would totally distract your focus. Now, I don't know to what degree hard scientists in the fields that are being represented by a film like Jurassic World, I don't know to what degree they're pissed off by the movie, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun ride, right? I also recently saw, finished True Detective, which was a lot of moving parts, a lot more moving parts, a lot more complicated. And if you enjoy complexity, maybe you enjoyed that one better than the first season. But typically for me, I would need to see the perpetrator more than once. It's really nuanced, because the way that True Detective is supposed to work is that as the viewer, you are kind of like the detective behind the fourth wall. You're also trying to solve the mystery, and unfortunately, there just wasn't enough evidence for me to go on. I could have gone back and rewatched it or what have you, but I don't know. I might still go back and rewatch to see if I can solve the mystery or even follow the plot. Season 2 was much more complicated than season 1. Much less straightforward. More characters, more moving parts. I mean, it was just more to keep track of. So finished that. Saw Mad Max. Consulted with a friend of mine, Harry Prey, who's in the film industry, to get his opinion of it, and he thoroughly disliked it. I was entertained by it. I kind of liked the kind of bizarro, post-apocalyptic themes or aesthetic, and I felt like it was in keeping with the original kind of bizarre. Not that people suffering from birth defects, as that little actor was, are kind of bizarre or whatever, but it lends itself to kind of this ethereal, kind of otherworldly kind of atmosphere, right? So I kind of appreciated that, like that it was kind of interesting in that regard, to be as politically correct as possible. But when I consulted him for his opinion, I value his opinion very highly of film. He's very very experienced in the making of film, in the technical aspects of it, of colorization, of post-processing, of directing. I mean, he's really a tour de force, and I'm looking forward to the day when Harry Prey the Fourth is able to, step out and actually make his own film. And I think what he's doing right now is he's paving the way. He's preparing the ground, hopefully I would think, either to create his own film himself, or to be part of a truly special group of people that creates a truly special film. So I'm looking forward to great things from him. So I defer to him, and when he said he didn't like it at all, he just panned it, I can see it from his perspective. I would tend to agree with him. It's really not a very good film. I mean, how do you say? It's not a very good film insofar as 300 wasn't a very good film. I'm not one of these people, and serving 4 years in the military, you run into it a lot, but during my time, 300, the film, had just recently been released, and there was like a cult following of the Spartans and anything having to do with Sparta, and this is Sparta, and Sparta leg kicks, and McMAP, which is the Marine Corps martial arts program, and just like countless people quoting the film ad nauseum, and I never bought into it. I thought, like, okay, it's a decent film. Is it, though? No, I didn't like the movie at all. And actually, it came time to watch another film which was stylistically very similar to it, called Immortals, The Immortals, which had nothing to do with immortals or immortality. It was a horrible film. I fell asleep in the film. When we had gone there, I remember I was on base in Japan with my fellow Marines. We went out to see Mission Impossible, got there, and I don't know, it was miscommunicated to me. I thought we were going to see Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, and we end up watching this shitty film called Immortals, So I'm kind of a big Mission Impossible spy genre film fan, and I was looking forward to it. So maybe it was like compounded that not only was I not seeing Mission Impossible, but I was seeing this film, this other film, or maybe just because I wasn't seeing Mission Impossible, that I developed this kind of, I don't know, aversion, this anathematic response to Immortals. I don't know what it was, but yeah, horrible film. So yeah, I take Harry Prey the Fourth's. I take his opinions. Yeah, I put a lot of weight in his opinion of film. So yeah, okay. So True Detective, Mad Max, saw the Imitation Game. That was quite good. Imitation Game was quite good. Good period film. Not sure how well it uh, portrayed, the struggle of being a homosexual man in that time period. I feel like maybe it could have been what some more conservative moviegoers might feel would be a risque representation of his homosexuality. Um, I think they don't show hardly anything. I mean, I don't even recall him seeing him kiss another man on screen. Although I might have just not been paying attention as I was multitasking at the time. But I watched the film. It seemed like his relationship with the female was much more prominently displayed than any kind of romantic liaison that he might have had with any male in the film. They kind of showcase the his homosexuality. It's kind of infantilized by this continuous flashback to the relationship, the burgeoning, loving relationship that he was fostering with his schoolmate, which it starts to enter kind of dicey territory. But I mean, it was completely innocent people. Like these were two boys, and yeah, well, starting to enter kind of a strange area here. But needless to say, um, like I wasn't expecting full on man on man fucking gay porn. Okay, that's not what I was expecting. But maybe something that paid more homage to the actual I don't know what a homosexual relationship actually consists of, which is not just sex, but something more redeeming. Because at the end of the day, these people, they're just in love with each other. Okay, that's just what it is. Sex aside, these people honestly have feelings of love for one another, and I feel like that wasn't necessarily portrayed. Like I said, the filmmakers tended to kind of infantilize the love. They kept flashing back to this what I call this burgeoning love between Turing, who was a boy at the time, and this other boy, Christopher. And they never really explored, like in his adult life, what his homosexuality, because it informs his character rather seriously. I mean, this is sexual orientation is one of these things which like defines who you are as a human being. Not completely, but it is a significant component to your identity, right? As is your nationality, as is your ethnicity, as is your, your political affiliation or whatever. And I felt like that was kind of just glossed over. either because the filmmaker wasn't brave enough, or the filmmaker wasn't informed enough. I mean, maybe if that film had been made by a homosexual director, we would have had a different film. And I'm not even sure. Maybe the director was homosexual. Maybe he was bisexual. I don't fucking know. Anyway, yeah, I felt like that it wasn't a bad film, but it was kind of, I don't know. It's left me, and it's obvious from just listening to my analysis. It's left me with kind of like a bizarre feeling. Like it should have been more. It could have been more, but I can't say either way. So, yeah. So those are the movie reviews. Jurassic World, movie TV reviews. Jurassic World. What do you call it? True Detective, and Mad Max, and The Imitation Game. Yeah, The Imitation Game. Wow, that's kind of strange, right? I mean, just the relationship, that boyhood relationship, was given so much time, so much screen time, and while it honestly might inform the character's history, right? Inform the character. I don't know what to make of that. Like, if that was really necessary to the degree that it was presented. Like, I don't know. It was like focused on. It was like the focal point of the film in many respects. It kind of bookended the film, because the movie is a series of flashbacks. You have, like, from after the war, you have this person, like, trying to investigate him, and prosecuting this witch hunt against Turing, because his military record is completely empty and someone thinks that he's a Soviet spy. And you have that, it bouncing back and forth between that and his life during the war, during the time when he was breaking Enigma, during the time when he was constructing Christopher, the name of the computer that the Brits used to crack the Enigma code, and flashing back to his time at primary school, or whatever the school was, where he was, when he was just this young boy, right? It didn't make a lot of sense. Like, there wasn't a lot to Turing in his prime. That's what I was looking for. Turing in his prime. And I don't know. I'm already speaking too much of this. It is what it is. See the film, don't see the film. But see the film, so we can have a conversation about it, because, yeah, it still strikes me as strange. So that just about wraps it up. So we'll end on the weird point, and we'll see you next time. Okay. This is Get Busy. Thank you very much for listening. And again, if you're looking to donate, please email me or PayPal me at benjamin.peterson@gmail.com. Okay? Take care. World peace.